Ethan once told me that marriage isn't just about two people. He said he would only marry me if his friends fully accepted me. So for 5 years, I swallowed my pride at every party, trying my best to please everyone just to get a perfect score. But my score was always 0. Tonight, at our pre-engagement dinner, his friends suddenly decided to play a game. Everyone could ask me one question. If a single answer didn't satisfy them, I couldn't be Ethan's wife. Are you even pure, Sarah? My boy Ethan shouldn't settle for used goods. Your family is broke. What makes you think you're good enough for him? Between you and Chloe, who do you think fits the title of Mrs. Sterling better? I clenched my fists, forcing a smile as I answered every single question. But in the end, they still voted unanimously. Chloe 100 points. Sarah 0 points. Ethan pulled out the proposal ring he had prepared, but under the mocking gaze of everyone, he put it back in his pocket. He even patted my head to comfort me. Don't be sad. They just want me to marry someone more likable. Work a little harder. Maybe you'll pass next year. Everyone immediately crowded around Chloe, laughing and gushing about how perfect she and Ethan looked together. At that moment, it finally hit me. I had spent 5 years trying to fit into his world, but it was just an exam I was destined to fail. Since none of them liked me anyway, fine. I'm done trying to get into Ethan's world. In our 5 years of dating, this was the first time I lost the game and didn't cry. Ethan's friends found it amusing. They started teasing me. Wow, hell must have frozen over. Our little crybaby Sarah didn't shed a single tear tonight. See, I told you exposure therapy works. Her skin gets thicker every year. Ethan used to tell us to watch out for her. But look at her. She's doing just fine without any help. They threw insults back and forth, dripping with condescension. Ethan heard them, but he didn't even look up. He never defended me in front of his friends. To him, they were always more important than me. The first year we played this rating game, I got a 0. I couldn't hold it in and burst into tears right there. Ethan didn't even offer me a tissue. He just let them take photos of me. To this day, the ugly photos of my ruined makeup are still pinned in their Snapchat group. Chloe pouted cutely. Stop teasing Sarah, guys. I'll get mad if you keep going. Sarah, try this dish. I don't think it tastes as good as Ethan's cooking though. Chloe looked at me with bright, expectant eyes, waiting for my reaction. I didn't pick up my fork. I just shook my head. I don't know. Ethan has never cooked for me. Ethan had never stepped foot in the kitchen. He always said he hated the smell of grease and found cooking to be a waste of time. Even when I had severe food poisoning and begged him to make me some simple oatmeal, he wouldn't do it. It turned out he wasn't incapable of cooking. He just didn't want to cook for me. Chloe glared at Ethan, pretending to be annoyed. What kind of boyfriend are you? You better cook for Sarah when you get home tonight, or you'll have to answer to me. Chloe was gorgeous. Even when she tried to look angry, she just looked adorable. Ethan pinched her chubby cheek, his eyes full of tenderness. Since my princess has spoken, I'll make sure to do it. I blinked, forcing down the tears that threatened to spill. No need. My stomach has been acting up lately. I can't eat anything heavy. Chloe gasped, looking a bit embarrassed. Oh, then let's ask the chef to make something else. Otherwise, you won't be able to eat anything on the table. Ethan stopped Chloe, his tone completely indifferent. Just deal with it, Sarah. There's no need to make everyone adjust to your taste. Someone laughed mockingly. Exactly. It's not like you've never eaten this before. Why so dramatic? Ethan loved spicy and heavy food, and so did his friends. I couldn't handle spicy food, but to fit in, I used to force myself to eat it. During one party when my gastritis was acting up, they ordered hot pot. I thought Ethan had ordered a mild broth specifically for me. I was so touched. Fearing his friends would be annoyed, I quickly apologized. I'm sorry, guys. I haven't been feeling well, so thank you for eating something so bland with me. To my surprise, the table erupted into laughter. Are you kidding? We came here because Chloe wanted mild soup. This has nothing to do with you. Ethan, your girlfriend really knows how to flatter herself. How embarrassing. That was the most painful meal of my life. I felt like throwing up the entire time. Now Ethan placed a small bowl of plain water next to my hand. Dip your food in the water. It won't be as spicy. That was what I had told Ethan years ago, trying to comfort him when I first cried from the spice. Now those words flew back like a boomerang, hitting me so hard I could barely breathe. Ethan, I don't want to eat. But my voice was drowned out by their loud laughter as they started a new topic. No one heard me. No one cared. Chloe was sharing a story about her recent ski trip, and everyone was listening intently. Ethan kept piling food onto my plate until it looked like a small mountain. I didn't take a single bite, but he didn't even notice. After dinner, Chloe wanted to go to a newly opened club, and of course the group followed. Chloe got into Ethan's car, but she didn't sit in the passenger seat. She sat in the back, expecting things to be handed to her. See? That's what the passenger seat is for. A personal servant. Ethan said nothing, silently agreeing with Chloe's jab at me. On the way, Chloe kept talking to Ethan about their childhood memories. The conversation was so fast and private that I couldn't get a word in. In the past, I would have desperately asked questions. Asterisk, who was that guy? What happened at that summer camp? Asterisk. I used to beg for details, trying to memorize their history just to feel like I belonged. But now I just sat there in silence, staring out the window. When we got out of the car, Ethan ruffled my hair. You behaved well this time. You learned to keep your mouth shut. I'll give you 1 point for that. My hand froze on my seatbelt. Ethan, did I really look that pathetic when I used to babble? Ethan's face darkened. I just praised you, and you're already ruining it. Don't go in there and ruin Chloe's mood like you did at dinner. Otherwise, you're getting a 0 next year too. Maybe Chloe was in a good mood tonight, because she actually pulled me to sit in the center seat next to her. I didn't want to, but someone dragged me over anyway. Chloe asked you to sit. Don't stand there looking like a victim. You make it look like we're bullying you. Chloe smiled brightly and raised her glass. This toast is to cheer Sarah up. Let's hope she gets a perfect score next year and officially becomes one of us. As soon as she said that, someone snickered. Right. I hope we get to drink at Ethan's wedding next year. After all, Chloe has already picked out her bridesmaid dress. Chloe hadn't just picked out her bridesmaid dress. She had already designed my wedding gown and planned the ceremony. Without my knowledge, Chloe had made several versions of the wedding itinerary and dragged Ethan to rehearse them with her. I had thrown a tantrum about it before, but Ethan thought it was completely normal. Chloe just thinks wedding planning is fun. Let her play around. I told you my friends' opinions matter to me. If you can't accept that, then we're done. I was so stupid back then. I thought Ethan's loyalty to his friends was a good trait. I thought if he treated his friends so well, he would treat his wife even better. But reality gave me a harsh slap in the face. Ethan only cared about his friends. He didn't care about me. I didn't drink the shot. Chloe looked hurt. Sarah, did I say something wrong to upset you? Ethan quickly poured another glass and shoved it into my hand. Apologized to Chloe. Now. The glass was so full that the liquor spilled over, staining my dress. It was the dress I had planned to wear for our engagement photos. It was completely ruined now. I stared at him in disbelief. I didn't do anything. Why should I apologize? Ethan frowned, his voice impatient. Does it matter? Just say something nice to make Chloe feel better, and we can move on. Chloe sat there, looking down with a faint, victorious smile. She said nothing, waiting for me to bow my head. I froze. Ethan leaned in and whispered, just cooperate. Don't ruin the night for everyone. The heavy, judgmental stares of everyone at the table pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. My hands shook as I forced the burning liquor down my throat. It felt like fire sliding down my esophagus. I clutched my stomach, bent over, and whispered, I'm sorry. Only then did Chloe smile, satisfied. Once she was happy, everyone else relaxed. Someone even patted my shoulder, praising me for being a good sport. We'll give you more points next year. We won't let you get a big fat 0 again. If this were the past, I would have been thrilled to get their validation. But now, I couldn't even force a smile. They went back to drinking and talking, quickly forgetting the little drama. I was pushed to the very edge of the booth. My lower back slammed hard against the sharp edge of the marble bar. The pain made me gasp, my face turning pale. The guy who bumped into me just shrugged, showing no remorse. Chloe needs to sit comfortably. Thanks for taking one for the team, babe. Someone scoffed and rolled their eyes. Why do you even bother talking to her? She can't even sit straight. So clumsy. The alcohol was hitting me hard, making my head spin. The voices around me sounded muffled, like they were coming from underwater. Chloe's eyes drifted back to me, and she spoke up as if asking a casual question. By the way, during the game earlier, is what Sarah said true? Her voice wasn't loud, but it was enough to quiet the table. Someone poked Ethan's shoulder jokingly. Yeah, did she make up that virgin story just to please you? Nowadays, girls can get a hymen reconstruction surgery and call themselves pure. My boy can't be a sucker. They laughed dirtily. Ethan's face tightened. He snapped, all right, drop it. He reached out to cover Chloe's ears, giving his friends a warning look. Don't say such filthy things in front of Chloe. No one took his warning seriously. The group was completely loose now. I stood there, feeling utterly humiliated. Once they finished laughing, they kept pressing. Is it because your parents were super strict? That's why you're so uptight. Chloe blinked in mock curiosity. But wait, Sarah, aren't you an orphan? Ethan said your parents died a long time ago. He said you were all alone and very pathetic. My deepest, most painful secret was ripped open and laid bare for everyone to mock. Ethan had shared my private pain with Chloe as if it were a joke. He had forgotten how he once cried for me when I first told him about my family. My fingers unconsciously reached for the thin silver chain around my neck. Hanging on it was a pair of simple silver rings, the only things my parents had left me. I had always wanted to take Ethan to visit my parents' graves. I wanted to exchange these meaningful rings in front of them. I wanted to tell them that I had found the man I could trust for the rest of my life. But year after year, because of those 0 points, I never got the chance to bring him there. Now, that regret turned into pure relief. Thank God I never brought him to see them. My parents would have been heartbroken. Even during those cruel rating games, I had never brought up my family to save myself from losing points. My father died in an accident, and my mother passed away a few years later. I survived on government aid and the kindness of neighbors. My brain was sluggish from the alcohol. I wanted to shake my head and deny their words. But the crowd erupted before I could speak. Whoa. You should have told us you don't have parents. We would have been more forgiving of your weird, sensitive personality. But seriously, you're kind of a curse, aren't you? First your parents, now hopefully you don't bring that bad juju to Ethan. Chloe frowned slightly. Losing family is sad, guys. When my puppy passed away, I cried for weeks. Sarah didn't choose this. The guys immediately softened their voices to comfort her. That's why we love you, Chloe. We don't even dare mention dogs in front of you because we don't want to make you sad. Ethan gently wiped away an imaginary tear from Chloe's face. I'll find another puppy for you. One that looks exactly like him. Actually, Ethan had already found a dog that looked exactly like Chloe's late puppy. It was a stray dog I had personally rescued from the streets. It had a broken leg and a severe fever for a week. I stayed up night after night to nurse it back to health. Taking care of that pup reminded me of my rare happy childhood memories. When I was little, a small mutt used to follow my parents and me up the hills, wagging its tail. I was determined to keep the rescued pup, and spent all my savings on its vet bills. Ethan even got jealous, complaining that I cared more about the dog than him. But despite his complaints, Ethan took over most of the training. He was incredibly dedicated. I thought it was a sign that he was accepting the dog, until I heard him say to his friend over the phone, "Once I train it well, I'll give it to Chloe. That way she'll stop crying over her dead dog." That day Ethan and I had a huge fight. Neither of us would back down. He said it was just a dog. I asked him, "Would you say that if it were Chloe's dog?" Ethan didn't answer. We both knew the truth. He slammed the door and left. I immediately found a loving, permanent home for the dog far away. When Ethan came home and saw the dog was gone, he didn't even ask about it. He never brought it up again, and I pretended it was in the past. My delayed reaction was taken as a confession by the crowd. They laughed louder, like sharks smelling blood. No wonder you're always so out of place. You had no one to teach you manners. Don't worry, we'll help you loosen up. We'll cure that antisocial vibe of yours. Chloe smiled, her eyes cold. Maybe Sarah has some hidden talents. You guys should look closely. I instinctively clutched my collar, stepping back in panic. But Tyler was quick. He spotted the silver chain around my neck. Is that the famous family heirloom? Let me see. Before I could react, he reached out and yanked it off my neck. Since it's so precious, let's share it around. He held the necklace high in the air, tossing it to Julian. Pass it around, guys. The necklace that held all my love and memories of my parents was being tossed like a toy. Every time it went up in the air, they did it just to watch me desperately scramble for it. Stop it. Give it back to me. My steps were unsteady, my head spinning. Instinct drove me to grab it, but I kept slipping and falling onto the hard floor. My palms were scraped raw, covered in dirt and blood. My knees were bruised and swollen. The sharp pain jolted through my body, forcing me to stay awake. Please give it back. Chloe laughed, but her words sounded fake. Oh my, she fell really hard. That looks scary. Ethan covered Chloe's eyes. All right, that's enough, guys. You're scaring Chloe. Julian shrugged, pushing me away impatiently. If you can't take a joke, don't play. You're ruining the vibe. We're scaring Chloe here. Let's take this outside. I grabbed the hem of Ethan's shirt, begging him. Ethan, tell them to stop. Give it back to me, please. Ethan's fingers twitched. He hesitated for a second. Then he stroked my face, sighing. They're doing this because they want to bond with you, Sarah. Don't you want a perfect score next year? Be good. They'll give it back once they're done playing. I clutched my head, my skull feeling like it was about to split open. I didn't want the perfect score anymore. I just wanted my necklace. Since Ethan wouldn't help me, I had to get it myself. Outside the VIP room was the stairwell. I stumbled after them. The hallway was dimly lit. All I could see was the shining silver chain. Come and get it, Sarah. In the chaotic scramble, someone backed up suddenly. I was shoved hard. My foot slipped, and I lost my footing entirely. Before I could even scream, I tumbled down the steep concrete stairs. The heavy sound of my body hitting the steps silenced all the laughter instantly. In my fading consciousness, I heard panicked chaos above me. Screams, whimpers. And then someone running down the stairs like crazy, screaming my name over and over. Sarah, wake up. Don't close your eyes. Are you guys insane? Call 911. The smell of hospital-grade antiseptic was the first thing that clawed its way into my senses. Then came the pain, a throbbing, nauseating ache radiating from the back of my skull down into my neck, accompanied by a sharp, stabbing heat in my left shoulder every time I drew a shallow breath. Sarah? Sarah, can you hear me? Look at me, please. I forced my heavy eyelids open. The harsh fluorescent lighting burned my retinas, turning the world into a blinding white haze before it slowly resolved into focus. Ethan was leaning over the hospital bed. His immaculate designer button-down was rumpled, stained with dark drops of my blood across the cuffs. His dark hair was a disheveled mess, and his bloodshot eyes were filled with a wild, frantic panic I had never seen in all our 5 years together. Behind him stood Chloe, clutching a small coffee cup, wearing an oversized cashmere cardigan. Her mascara was slightly smudged, her lower lip trembling with masterfully crafted distress. Further back, near the closed door of the private room, Tyler and Julian were pacing, their faces pale and uneasy. Thank God, Ethan breathed, reaching out with trembling fingers to grasp my right hand. The doctor said you have a grade 2 concussion, 3 cracked ribs, and a fractured clavicle. They had to put 6 stitches in the back of your head. Do you know how terrified I was? His hand was warm. In the past, a single gesture of concern like this would have made me weep with gratitude. I would have blamed myself for worrying him, apologized for being clumsy, and spent the next week catering to his needs to make up for the inconvenience. Now his touch felt like ice-cold grease sliding across my skin. I pulled my hand away. The movement sent a searing jolt of agony through my left collarbone, but I didn't flinch. I let my hand rest limply on the coarse hospital sheet, completely out of his reach. Ethan's fingers remained frozen in midair. A flicker of bewilderment crossed his face. Sarah? Where is it? My voice sounded like crushed gravel, dry and hollow. Ethan blinked. What? What do you need, sweetie? Water? Pain medication? I'll call the nurse. My necklace, I said, staring unblinkingly at him. Where are my parents? Rings. The room fell into an abrupt, suffocating silence. Julian stopped pacing. Tyler looked down at his sneakers, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. Chloe stepped forward, putting on her softest, most innocent voice. Sarah was so dark on the stairs. When you slipped and fell, everyone panicked. We were only thinking about saving your life. The club was so crowded. The chain must have broken and gotten swept away. Tyler ripped it off my neck, I said, cutting through her breathy excuses like a rusted blade. I turned my head slowly, fighting through a wave of dizziness, to lock eyes with Tyler. He snatched it in the booth. He tossed it to Julian. You all played keep away with it. Tyler's face flushed an angry, guilty crimson. Look, Sarah, we were just drinking. We were messing around. Nobody told you to chase after us and throw yourself down the stairs like a maniac. Tyler, shut up. Ethan snapped, rounding on his friend with sudden fury. Why should I shut up? Tyler shouted back, defensive adrenaline making his voice crack. You're the one who told us she was an easy target. You're the one who let us rate her 0 every year. Now she trips on her own 2 feet, and suddenly we're the bad guys. I said shut the hell up. Ethan lunged forward, grabbing Tyler by the collar and shoving him hard against the wall. She almost died. Do you understand that? If that fall had broken her neck, all of us would be in prison. All of us would be in prison. I listened to his words, feeling a cold, humorless smile tug at the corner of my split lip. Even in his rage, even in his supposed concern for me, his fundamental panic was about self-preservation. It was about his reputation, his pristine record, his golden circle of friends. Ethan, stop. You're hurting him. Chloe cried out, rushing over to pull at Ethan's arm. We're all on edge. Don't fight among yourselves. Ethan released Tyler with a venomous glare. He ran a hand over his face, took a few deep, ragged breaths, and walked back to the edge of my bed. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small, velvet box, the one he had tucked away at dinner after the unanimous 0-point vote. He popped the brass clasp open. The platinum engagement ring sat on the black velvet cushion, its brilliant cut diamond catching the clinical light of the room. Look, Sarah, Ethan said softly, his voice dropping into that familiar coaxing tone he used whenever he wanted me to drop an argument. I know tonight got out of hand. The game was stupid. The guys took the joke way too far, and I promise I'm going to make Tyler search that entire club until he finds your necklace. He took the ring out of the box and held it between his thumb and forefinger, hovering it over my left hand. We don't need to wait for next year's score. I'm done with the ratings. As soon as you're discharged, we'll go down to City Hall. We'll get married, just the 2 of us, and buy a house in the suburbs. Okay. He looked at me with open, expectant eyes. He genuinely believed he was offering me salvation. He believed that after 5 years of starving me of affection, waving this shiny piece of metal in front of My battered face would wipe the slate clean. I looked at the diamond. Then, I looked straight into Ethan Sterling's eyes. No. Ethan's smile froze. What did you say? I said no, I replied, my voice calm level, and entirely devoid of emotion. Put it away. Chloe gasped softly from behind him. Sarah, are you still in shock? Ethan is proposing to you. You've been waiting for this for 5 years. I was waiting for a man who respected me, I said, not sparing Chloe a single glance. It took me 5 years and a broken collarbone to realize that man doesn't exist in this room. Ethan's brow furrowed, his patience instantly beginning to fray. Sarah, stop being dramatic. You had a concussion. You're emotional, you're on heavy painkillers, and you're lashing out because you're hurt. I understand that. But don't say things you're going to regret. The only thing I regret, I whispered, feeling the cold weight of absolute clarity settle into my chest, is wasting 5 years of my youth acting like a trained dog for people who viewed me as vermin. Julian scoffed from the back of the room. Unbelievable. She almost gets us a manslaughter charge, and now she's acting like a martyr. Ethan, let her cool off. She'll come crawling back the second her hospital bill arrives. Julian, get out. Ethan growled without turning around. Whatever, man. Good luck with your charity case, Julian muttered, shoving the door open and walking out. Tyler hesitated for a second before following him into the hallway. Chloe looked between Ethan and the door, chewing her lip. Ethan, maybe I should go too. I'll check on the boys. Yeah, go, Ethan muttered. Once the door clicked shut, leaving only the two of us in the quiet hum of the monitors, Ethan sank into the plastic armchair beside the bed. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders trembling. Sarah, please, he choked out, his voice muffled against his palms. I know I messed up. I know I should have stopped them sooner. But they're my childhood friends. We grew up together. Their families have business ties with my father's firm. I couldn't just cut them off over a dinner game. A dinner game? I asked quietly. They called me used goods. They mocked my dead parents. They called me a curse. And you covered Chloe's ears so she wouldn't hear the filth, while leaving me out in the open to be devoured. Ethan looked up, tears finally spilling down his cheeks. I didn't mean it like that. I thought you were strong enough to take it. You never complained before. A dry, bitter laugh escaped my throat, sending another spike of pain through my ribs. I didn't complain because I loved you, Ethan. I thought that if I endured enough humiliation, if I proved my loyalty by swallowing every insult with a smile, you would eventually see that I was worth protecting. I turned my head to face the window, watching the gray dawn slowly creep over the city skyline. I was wrong. You didn't want a partner. You wanted a scapegoat. You wanted someone your friends could step on so you could all feel superior together. That's not true. Ethan stood up, his voice cracking with desperation. Grabbed the bed rail, leaning over me. I love you, Sarah. I bought this ring 6 months ago. I planned our whole future. Then you can keep the ring for Chloe, I said. Because I am pressing charges. Ethan froze. The color drained from his face so fast he looked like a corpse. What did you just say? Tyler committed grand larceny when he ripped an antique heirloom off my neck, I said, meeting his terrified gaze. And when he shoved me down those concrete stairs, that was aggravated assault resulting in severe bodily harm. I want the police. Sarah, are you insane? Ethan's voice rose to a panicked shriek. He lunged forward, grabbing the bedside call button and tossing it onto the nightstand out of my reach. Tyler's father is the primary investor in our new tech venture. If you file a police report, Tyler gets a criminal record, his family pulls $30 million of capital, and my company goes bankrupt. I looked at him, really looked at him. The tailored clothes, the expensive haircut, the Ivy League pedigree. Beneath the gilded exterior, there was nothing but a hollow, cowardly parasite who would gladly sacrifice my bones to keep his bank account full. Then I suggest you call your lawyer, Ethan, I whispered. Sarah, don't do this. Ethan begged, dropping to his knees beside the bed, grabbing the edge of the mattress. If you press charges, we're over. Do you hear me? You will have nothing. No home, no money, no one to take care of you. Who is going to pay this hospital bill? At that moment, the door to the private room swung open with a sharp, heavy thud. 2 police officers in uniform stepped into the room, followed by a tall, sharply dressed woman carrying a leather briefcase. The woman had cold, piercing gray eyes, her dark hair swept into an immaculate chignon. She glanced at Ethan kneeling pathetically on the floor, then looked directly at me. Miss Sarah Vance? The woman asked, her voice crisp and authoritative. Yes, I replied. The woman pulled a business card from her jacket and laid it gently on my bedside table. My name is Victoria Sterling. I am the senior managing partner at Sterling and Cross Legal Associates. And more importantly, I am Ethan's aunt. Ethan scrambled to his feet, his jaw dropping in sheer disbelief. Aunt? Victoria? What? What are you doing here? Victoria didn't even spare her nephew a glance. She looked down at my bruised face, her expression tightening with cold, professional fury. I received an anonymous video file 40 minutes ago, Victoria said, tapping her tablet screen. Footage from Club Velvet's mezzanine security camera, along with 3 years of audio recordings from your private group dinners. Miss Vance, if you are willing to retain my firm, I will ensure that every single person involved in your assault, including anyone attempting to tamper with witnesses in this hospital room, faces the absolute maximum penalty under state law. Ethan stumbled backward until his back hit the wall. Aunt Victoria, you can't do this. This is a family matter. Tyler's father is a corrupt embezzler whom the board has been looking to excise. For 2 quarters, Victoria interrupted, her voice slicing through the air like a guillotine. And you, Ethan, have brought a violent criminal liability straight into the Sterling name. She turned to the 2 police officers waiting by the door. Officers, my client is prepared to give her official statement regarding the grand larceny of her family heirlooms and the aggravated assault that took place at Club Velvet at 1:45 a.m. Furthermore, I am requesting an immediate emergency protection order against Ethan Sterling for ongoing witness intimidation. No. Aunt Victoria, please. Ethan lunged forward, but the taller of the 2 officers immediately stepped between him and the bed, placing a heavy hand on his chest. Step back, sir. Outside. Now. Sera. Look at me. Ethan shouted over the officer's shoulder, his composure completely shattering into ugly, hysterical desperation. Tell them it was an accident. Sarah, we've been together for 5 years. You can't destroy my life over this. Sera. I didn't speak. I didn't look at him. I gave the police officer a quiet, resolute nod. The officers grabbed Ethan by his arms, turning him around and escorting him out into the corridor. Through the closing door, I could hear his muffled shouts echoing down the hospital hallway, followed by the firm, administrative warnings of the security staff. When the door finally latched shut, the room fell into a deep, serene quiet. Victoria pulled the plastic visitor's chair over, sitting down beside me. Her stern, aristocratic face softened by a microscopic fraction. I've known about you for 3 years, Sarah, Victoria said quietly, setting her briefcase on her lap. My brother, Ethan's father, always spoke highly of your patience. But patience in the face of cruelty is not a virtue, it is slow suicide. How did you get the video? I asked, my throat tight. Club Velvet is owned by an investment group where I hold a 30% equity stake, Victoria replied smoothly. When the paramedics were dispatched to the stairwell, the venue manager flagged the incident directly to my office. I pulled the tapes myself. She opened her briefcase, pulling out an evidence bag containing 2 items, a twisted silver chain and 2 simple, polished silver rings. My breath hitched in my throat. Tears, hot and uncontrollable, finally spilled over my eyelashes, tracking down my bruised cheeks. One of the busboys found them wedged under the rubber stair tread, Victoria said, gently placing the clear plastic bag into my uninjured hand. There. Safe. I clutched the plastic bag against my chest, curling inward despite the sharp protest of my cracked ribs, and wept. I didn't cry for Ethan. I didn't cry for the 5 wasted years, the humiliating rating games, or the ruined engagement dress. I cried for the orphan girl who had allowed herself to be starved of dignity, just to sit at a table full of monsters. And as the tears washed the last remnants of my blindness away, I felt something hard, cold, and unbreakable take root in the center of my soul. The legal machinery of Sterling and Cross moved with terrifying, industrial speed. By noon that same day, Tyler Vance was arrested at his family's penthouse on charges of felony grand larceny and aggravated assault. Because the club's high-definition camera clearly captured the moment he wrenched the necklace from my neck and intentionally shoved his shoulder backward into my chest on the top landing, the magistrate set his bail at $500,000 with strict ankle monitoring. Julian, who had actively participated in the keep-away game and blocked the stairwell exit, was charged as an accessory to felony assault. The scandal tore through the city's elite social circles like a wildfire through dry pine. Victoria did not just file criminal charges. She initiated a full-scale corporate audit of the investment funds managed by Tyler's father. Within 48 hours, evidence of systematic tax fraud and commercial embezzlement was uncovered, forcing Tyler's father to resign from all board seats and triggering a federal inquiry. The invincible boys who had spent years treating the world like their personal playground were suddenly facing real prison time, frozen trust funds, and complete social excommunication. And then there was Chloe. On the third day of my hospital stay, a local lifestyle blog leaked the 5-year archive of the group's private Snapchat records. A leak that Victoria's public relations team orchestrated with surgical precision. The public saw everything. They saw the photos of my crying face from the first year's dinner, accompanied by mocking captions written by Chloe. Look at the little stray dog trying to act like a lady. They saw the chat logs where Chloe openly bragged about making me drink until I vomited, boasting that Ethan would bark on command whenever she snapped her fingers. They saw the video of Chloe giggling on the night of my fall, stepping over the puddle of my blood on the stairs to adjust her lipstick in the lobby mirror. The backlash was swift and merciless. Chloe's family luxury boutique was inundated with thousands of negative reviews and boycotts. 2 major beauty brands immediately terminated their sponsorship contracts with her, releasing statements that they do not tolerate bullying, harassment, or criminal cruelty. Her carefully curated persona as the sweet, innocent princess was vaporized overnight. On the 5th morning, my hospital room door opened quietly. I was sitting up in bed, dressed in a clean cotton sweater, reviewing the severance agreement Victoria had drafted for my former lease with Ethan. A figure slipped through the door, wearing a heavy trench coat, dark sunglasses, and a silk headscarf pulled low over her forehead. Chloe pulled off the glasses, revealing eyes that were red, swollen, and surrounded by dark, sunken hollows. Her cheeks were pale, completely stripped of makeup. Sarah, Chloe whispered, her voice trembling, stripped of all its former breathy arrogance. Please, you have to tell Victoria to call off the press. I turned a page of my document, not looking up. Visiting hours start at 10. Miss Bennett, you're trespassing. Chloe rushed to the edge of the bed, dropping to her knees on the linoleum floor, clasping her hands in desperate supplication. Sarah, I'm begging you. My father's company dropped our distributor agreements. This morning, people are throwing paint at our storefront. My social media accounts are suspended. I can't even leave my apartment without photographers chasing me. And what does that have to do with me? I asked, my tone as flat as a frozen lake. You can issue a statement. Chloe cried, tears streaming down her pale face. You can tell them it was all an inside joke. Tell them we were just role-playing, that we're all friends. If you do, I'll pay your medical bills. I'll give you $100,000. I'll make Ethan sign over his apartment to you. I slowly lowered the paperwork onto my lap and looked down at the woman kneeling at my feet. This was the girl who had pinched Ethan's cheek while I choked down food that burned my ulcer. This was the girl who had smiled victoriously while I apologized for a spilled drink on my engagement dress. $100,000? I asked softly. Chloe's eyes lit up with a wild, desperate hope. Yes. More if you want. Just make the boycott stop. Chloe, I said, leaning forward slightly, my gaze cutting through her like a scalpel. Do you remember what you said to me on the night of my fall? Chloe flinched. As Sarah. Losing family is sad, guys. When my puppy passed away, I cried for weeks. I repeated her exact words, mimicking her sweet, patronizing cadence. That's why. We love you, Chloe. We don't even dare mention dogs in front of you because we don't want to make you sad. Chloe's face turned from pale to an ashen, sickly gray. You treated my life, my dead parents, and my dignity like a disposable party prop for 5 years, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that made the air in the room freeze. Now you get to live in the cage you built. Nurse, I pressed the call button on the wall. Sarah. No, please, Chloe shrieked, scrambling backward as 2 security guards entered the room. You can't do this to me. I'm Chloe Bennett. You're just an orphan nobody. Get this trespasser off the floor, I told the guards. And if she steps foot in this wing again, have her arrested for violating the protection order. The guards hoisted Chloe up by her arms, dragging her out into the hallway as she screamed, sobbed, and cursed, her manicured nails clawing at the doorframe, until the latch clicked shut. Silence returned. I picked up my pen and signed my name on the final line of the severance document. 2 weeks later, I was formally discharged from the hospital. My left arm was still secured in a supportive sling, and my ribs throbbed with a dull ache whenever the weather turned damp, but my mind had never been clearer. Victoria had arranged for my personal belongings to be moved out of Ethan's downtown apartment while he was being detained for questioning by the financial crime division. Everything that belonged to me, my clothes, my books, my design portfolios, and the small wooden box containing my mother's knitting supplies, had been transferred to a quiet, sunlit loft on the north side of the city. I stood in the center of Ethan's empty living room for the last time, handing the key fob to the building manager. Everything has been cleared out, Miss Vance, the manager said politely, handing me the receipt. Mr. Sterling hasn't been back since last Tuesday. Thank you, I said. I turned toward the elevator, but before the doors could open, the heavy fire door to the stairwell burst open. Ethan stood in the doorway. He looked unrecognizable. His expensive suit was rumpled, stained with grease around the lapels. His face was covered in a thick, patchy beard, his eyes sunken and bloodshot, surrounded by dark purple bruises of absolute exhaustion. He smelled heavily of cheap whiskey and stale tobacco. When his eyes locked onto mine, a sound tore from his throat, a choked, ragged gasp that sounded almost animalistic. Sarah? He stumbled forward, dropping his briefcase onto the hallway carpet. Sarah, you're here. You came back? I stood perfectly still, my right hand resting comfortably in the pocket of my wool coat, watching his approach with the detached curiosity one might reserve for a stranger on a subway platform. I came to return the keys to management, I said calmly. I'm leaving now. No. No, you can't leave. Ethan lunged forward, falling to his knees on the carpet right in front of me, reaching out with shaking hands to grasp the hem of my coat. I took a single, deliberate step backward. His fingers caught only empty air. Sarah, please, look at what's happening to me. Ethan wept, pressing his forehead against the floorboards, his broad shoulders heaving with violent, racking sobs. My father removed me from the family trust. The board suspended my CEO title. Tyler's family is suing me for breach of contract, and Julian won't even take my calls. He lifted his tear-streaked face, looking up at me with eyes full of a pathetic, bottomless agony. They're all gone, Sarah. Every single one of them. The moment the money stopped flowing, the moment the lawyers showed up, they turned their backs on me. Chloe tried to sell my private emails to a tabloid yesterday to pay her legal fees. A faint, humorless smile touched my lips. I know. You were the only one, Ethan cried, his voice cracking into high-pitched, ragged shreds. You were the only person who ever loved me for who I was, not what my last name could buy. I was blind, Sarah. I was a monster. I let them torture you because I was too weak to stand up to them. He reached into his pocket with frantic, clumsy fingers, pulling out a small, worn piece of paper covered in his own handwriting. Look at this, he begged, holding the paper up toward me. It was a list. 1. Sarah loves chicken noodle soup with extra ginger, not spicy broth. 2. Stomach hurts when she drinks cold water in the morning. 3. Sarah's father was an engineer who loved woodworking. Her mother was a primary school teacher. 4. Sarah's favorite season is early autumn because the air smells like fallen leaves. 5. Sarah scored 100 points on every single day of our 5 years, and I was the one who failed. I looked at the ink-stained paper. 5 years ago, I would have traded my life to see him write these words. I would have framed that paper, wept over it, and spent the rest of my days making sure he never felt lonely. Now, looking at his handwriting, all I felt was a vast, hollow silence. Ethan, I said softly. He snapped his head up, a wild, desperate spark of hope flaring in his bloodshot eyes. Yes, Sarah? Yes, my love. I'll do anything. I'll leave the city. We can move to a small town. I'll cook for you every single day. I'll work at a grocery store. I'll scrub floors. I'll spend the rest of my life making this right. Do you know why I never cried on the night of my fall? I asked gently. Ethan froze, his lips parting slightly. Because when I hit the bottom of those stairs, lying in the dark while you all laughed above me, the part of me that loved you finally died. I looked down into his ruined face, my voice steady, crystalline, and absolute. You didn't just lose your friends, Ethan. You didn't just lose your company. You killed the only genuine love you will ever have in this lifetime, with your own 2 hands. No. Sarah, please don't say that. Please. He sobbed, clawing at the carpet, trying to crawl toward my boots. I stepped around him, pressed the elevator call button, and stepped inside the metal cab. As the polished doors began to slide shut, Ethan threw himself against the threshold, his bloody fingers trying to pry the steel apart, screaming my name over and over into the empty shaft. Sarah. Sarah, please. Don't leave me in the dark. Sarah. I looked at him through the narrow gap as the door sealed shut. My face remained completely still. Ping. The elevator descended smoothly into the morning light, leaving the howling ghost of my past trapped forever on the floor above. 1 year later, the autumn sun bathed the granite steps of the City Art Museum in a warm, golden glow. The crisp breeze carried the clean, sweet scent of roasted chestnuts and fallen maple leaves. Inside the grand exhibition hall, hundreds of guests in formal attire milled around the opening gala of the New England Architectural Heritage Showcase. Near the center of the gallery stood a towering, intricate architectural model. A state-of-the-art public community center designed entirely around natural light, communal green spaces, and sustainable timber. The plaque beside the installation read, Project. the Renaissance Atrium lead architect. Sarah Vance, recipient of the 2025 National Civic Design Gold Medal. I stood near the edge of the pavilion, dressed in a sleek, tailored, emerald green silk pantsuit, a glass of sparkling water held lightly in my right hand. My dark hair was cut into a chic, shoulder-length bob framing a face that was radiant, healthy, and completely free of the shadows that had haunted my 20s. Around my neck, resting against the collar of my silk blazer, was the thin, silver chain, holding the two simple, polished rings of my parents. Miss Vance? A young junior associate approached, holding a clipboard with an expression of deep reverence. The mayor's cultural liaison is requesting a private walkthrough of the third-floor blueprints. Do you have 5 minutes? Of course, Marcus. I smiled warmly. Lead the way. As we walked through the sunlit atrium, my gaze casually drifted toward the museum's glass entrance doors. Standing outside on the public sidewalk, behind the velvet security stanchions, in the chilly autumn wind, was a lone figure. Ethan Sterling. He was wearing a worn, faded trench coat, his shoulders hunched against the cold. He had lost his family's wealth, his social standing, and his corporate prestige. He worked as an entry-level logistics clerk at a suburban warehouse, living in a tiny studio apartment above a noisy rail line. He stood behind the barricade, holding a ticket he couldn't afford to use, staring through the thick glass at the radiant, untouchable woman standing in the center of the exhibition hall. He saw the way the city leaders shook my hand with genuine respect. He saw the way my colleagues laughed at my jokes, valuing my intellect and celebrating my triumphs. He saw the silver rings resting proudly against my chest, the rings he had allowed his friends to toss in the dirt. Our eyes met across the 50 yards of glass and light. There was no hatred in my gaze. There was no triumphant smirk, no lingering bitterness, no spark of remembered pain. I looked at him for half a second, the same way I might look at a fallen leaf on the pavement or a passing cloud in the sky. Then I turned my head, offered the mayor's liaison a brilliant, confident smile, and walked deeper into the warmth of the gallery. Behind me, through the glass, Ethan dropped his gaze to the cold concrete. Beneath his worn shoes, clutching the empty velvet box in his pocket, finally understanding the true meaning of the score he had written for himself. 0 points. Forever.